My name's Andrew Kaufman. I'm going to read the first chapter from Born Weird. It's only 5 pages, so don't worry that much. It's not that big a commitment. Okay, chapter 1. The Weirds acquired their surname through a series of events that some would call coincidence and others would call fate. Sterling D. Wyatt, in the process of immigrating from England to Canada, worked his way across the Atlantic aboard the Icelandic fishing trawler Orlik. Inclement weather and empty nets made the 6-week journey 3 months long. When Sterling finally stepped onto the freshly built planks of Pier 21 in Halifax, he presented his papers to an immigration guard who, just that morning, had met the woman destined to become his wife. This guard, in a stroke of either inspiration or absent-mindedness, changed the Y in Sterling's last name to an E. 77 years later, as his great-grandchildren gathered for the final game of their high school football team season, the spelling mistake remained. They were still weird. The 4 oldest siblings, Richard, 19, Lucy, 17, Abba, 16, and Angie, 14, were in the stands, ready to watch Kent, the youngest, play football. Or rather to watch Kent sit in the stands or sit on the bench as his teammates played football. Kent was in grade 9, but he'd skipped grade 6, so he was only 13, yet he'd somehow managed to earn a spot as the 3rd-string quarterback. That Kent had spent the season sitting on the bench didn't bother the Weird siblings in the least. They preferred that he should never make it onto the field. The idea of having to watch him play filled them all with anxiety, which is why the last game of the season was the first they'd come to see. They stood in the crowd, feeling awkward. Theirs were the only faces not painted blue and white, the school's colors. Their classmates chanted fight songs that they didn't know the words to, but Kent remained safely on the bench. Then, with 57 seconds left in the game, the team's star quarterback, Kevin Hackett, received a stunning sack and had to be carried off the field. Mike Bloomfield, the 2nd-string quarterback, had just been diagnosed with mononucleosis and was therefore at home. The coach looked at Kent and gave him the nod. Kent ran onto the field for the first time that season, failing to notice that his shoes were untied. The home team was losing by a field goal, or to put it another way, a touchdown would give them the game. The idea that Kent had been given this chance seemed unbelievable to his brothers and sisters. It's not as if the Weird children were outcasts. They were popular, they just weren't A-list. To reach the zenith of teenage popularity, at least at Effie Medill Secondary School, athletic accomplishment was a non-negotiable prerequisite. The sort of popularity that, should Ken win this game, would instantaneously be transferred onto each of them. Angie was very aware that this was the strangest thing about excelling in high school. It made you more normal, not more exceptional. And normalcy was what she craved more than anything else. But did she cheer and yell for Kent? No, she did not. None of them did. They didn't even call out his name. They were terrified. Not one of them spoke as Kent bent down and tied his shoes. Angie searched the crowd, but she couldn't see their mother, her father, or grandmother. Her parents had gone to the airport, or so she believed, to pick up her grandmother, arriving for her annual month-long Christmas visit. The plan had been for everyone to meet in the parking lot before the game, but her parents and grandmother had never arrived. The thought that they were missing Kent's potential moment of triumph was greatly upsetting to Angie, but then she forgave them instantly. And as Kent called the play, she forgot about them completely. The teams got into position. The siblings remained silent. The blue and white faces surrounding them cheered their heads off. "Hut!" Kent called. The center flicked the ball into his hands. The clock ticked. Kent went back. He threw a pass. It tumbled through the air and into the stands. The teams huddled again. Kent clapped his hands. Everyone went into formation. 2nd down with 36 seconds left on the clock. The ball was snapped. Kent faked a pass. Then he handed the football to a running back who was quickly tackled just behind the line of play. It was a loss of 2 yards. 23 seconds were left on the clock, which continued to tick. Last down and last chance. The center snapped the ball into Kent's hands. His brothers and sisters still didn't cheer. They were terrified that Kent was going to drop the football. He took 2 steps back and then a third. He turned his head to the right and raised the ball, but he still didn't throw it. Angie glanced at the clock. It ticked down through the number 13, and when she looked back at Kent, she saw him do a very odd thing. He shut his eyes. They remained closed as he tucked the football against his chest and began to run. The breast-held Richard, Abba, Lucy, and Angie watched Kent as he ran forwards. His head was down. His eyes were still closed. He ran directly into the defensive line. For a moment, he disappeared behind opposition uniforms. And then there he was, on the other side. Less than 20 yards separated Kent and the goal line. At the 5-yard line, a lanky safety caught up to him. The opposing player leapt into the air. He landed heavily on Kent's back. Kent didn't seem to notice. With the safety's arms wrapped around his waist, Kent ran over the goal line and into the end zone. He didn't open his eyes until he heard the roar of the crowd. He saw the cheering fans and astonished siblings and his overjoyed teammates running towards him. Then he saw his grandmother. She stood at the edge of the field. Her face wordlessly conveyed that something horrible had happened. The ball fell out of Kent's hands just as his teammates reached the end zone. They tried to hoist him up on their shoulders, but Kent evaded their grasp. He walked to the sidelines, took off his helmet, and approached his grandmother. And so Kent was the first of the Weirds to learn that everything had changed forever, that their father was dead.